All right, it's time for business, and Chandra Afeni is in the studio. So let's still talk about the ECO. The ECO
Are you ready for a common currency?
Well, if it's convertible, as in if I can travel with it, and
Of course you can.
No, travel where exactly?
All right.
I feel it's going to take a while before it can be accepted.
And whether this is actually going to work, considering the issues that we have in the sub-region.
Right.
It's a concern to many.
Let's be hopeful.
Right, yeah.
Right. Okay.
All right, good evening. My name is Sandra and I'm up and as always, I'm here for business. By January 2020, West African countries will begin using a single currency, the ECO. This follows an endorsement by leaders at the 55th ECOWAS Summit in Abuja, Nigeria. But there's more in this report.
According to ECOWAS, any country that wants to start issuing the currency must meet certain key targets. Some of these include a budget deficit of not more than 3%, average annual inflation of not less than 10%, with a long-term goal of not more than 5% by the end of 2019. Countries are expected to have a gross reserves that can finance at least 3 months of imports. The other convergence criteria that has been adopted by ECOWAS are public debt of not more than 70% of GDP. There's also issue with the central bank's financing budget deficit of not more than 10% of the previous year's tax revenue and a nominal exchange rate variation of plus or minus 10%. Now, based on these criteria, the country has met almost all of them, with the exception of the budget deficit, which is said to have hit 3.9% last year. But the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, insists the country is on track and could possibly start issuing the currency from next year. For some, the concern here is that looking at the structures in the various West African countries, would they be able to sustain the use of this currency, or it could rather come with more troubles? A look at the indicators of most of the countries have shown that a favorable budget deficit has been one of the major reasons why it has delayed the introduction of the ECO in 2005, 2010, and 2015.
Meanwhile, ECOWAS Commissioner for Macroeconomic Policy and Economic Research, Dr. Konedu Apreku, has been explaining progress made so far towards the issuance of the ECO.
I'm hoping that we are taking cognizance of that, and that is one of our biggest challenges. For example, some of the countries, without mentioning names, that are meeting the convergence criteria now are probably not the strongest economies, and therefore probably just speculating that will be difficult to just start with them alone. We need some of the bigger economies. So if these countries are there, then it makes it even better, so the smaller countries can join. But we have not made any distinction. We have said that the countries that meet the convergence criteria will start. As others meet the convergence criteria, they will join. And I can't predict which countries will be able to meet.
Hope for the Ghana.
Of course, I have to hope.
All right, so I want to say a little bit on that topic and what difference it will actually have having a common currency, especially with recent trade barriers, issues and all that. I want to go over to the phone lines and speak to an economist, Courage Mate, who works with Data Bank, for his thoughts. Good evening, sir, and thanks so much for your time. All right, Courage, we know member states have been trying for some time now to meet all these criteria. It's been quite a long time now, and it looks like it's difficult to meet these criteria. Is it that it's too ambitious, or you think that there's some sort of motivation to still go ahead with a single currency?
Well, I think it is ambitious, and I see this time in the last couple of years, I see a lot of motivation to go ahead with it. I think the problem we face right now is that apart from our inability to keep our budget deficit in check, our economy is also very exposed to the external market, particularly commodity markets, where there is a boom and bust cycle. And once there is a bust, then our economy tends to suffer some instability, and then prices go over the roof, and inflation is not in single digits anymore, and currency becomes volatile. So these are the problems we face. Our significant exposure to the commodity market shock and the global financial system is why we are unable to sustain that stability that can lead us to converge at that level. If we are able to put up the structures and reform some of our budgetary operations, and of course strengthen the price price stability mechanism, I'm sure we will be able to get there. But we still have a long way to go, particularly for the top 2 economies in West Africa.
Right. So, okay. Yes, the Eurozone is working. They have strong fundamentals. But mind you, Greece was one of the bad nuts for the Eurozone. And so I want to believe that if one country could destroy everything, so do you think that African countries can maintain a stable fundamental, like you said, for a common currency?
Well, it is possible. I mean, it depends on the size of that economy and the impact it can have on the whole system. I mean, if you look at Greece, for instance, and you compare Greece to a country like Germany, France, Italy, who are the top 3 economies in the Eurozone, you would say that while Greece is a threat, I mean, that threat can be broadly contained. Now, you come to the ECO, you will need the top 2 economies like Nigeria and Ghana to start up. And I would prefer a situation where you have Nigeria being the biggest in the sub-region, followed by Ghana, the second largest, among the starters, so that you can then have a situation where this will be the anchor economy for the currency.
All right.
Then we can be able to sustain the credibility of that system.
All right, you spoke about our budget deficits, and we know that one of the criteria you have to meet is to fall below 3%. And this is, I mean, to be able to issue the currency. As it stands now, Ghana's deficit is above the 3%, and we are told that we might be the first country to jump on the issuance of the currency. Are you surprised by that?
Well, I must say I am surprised because at the end of last year, the deficit was 3.9%, which is higher than 3%, obviously. Now, this year, the target is to do an even higher deficit of 4.2%. Next year, when we are expecting the currency to take off, we are expecting to do 3.7%. So you see that we are consistently above the 3% threshold. If you look at government-owned forecast into the year 2022, we are expecting to still be slightly above 3%. So that's why I'm a bit more shaky in my expectations of Ghana starting anytime soon.
I'm grateful for your time. Courage Martis, an economist with Data Bank. So we've been talking about ECO, but what is it really about? Take a look at this. I'm grateful for your time for now. I'll be back after 8 p.m. with more business news where we'll be hitting the streets to find out what you make of a common currency. Do stay tuned.